Have you ever heard a sound that is so high-pitched that you find it very uncomfortable to listen? Have you ever wondered how it affects your hearing? Today, let us discuss the effects of exposure to ultrasonic sound on human hearing.
This video is presented to you by the researchers Arcadio Juan Paulo, Lamparas Jether, and Sabellano Abigail.
To begin, let us first talk about hearing. Hearing is considered as one of the major senses of the human body. It is a deliberate appreciation of sound experienced as vibration. And in order to do so, a signal must be able to reach higher parts of the brain for it to be perceived.
Next, let us talk about the human auditory system. The human auditory system is operationally defined by Steen, Metz, and Lee 2015 as the sensory system that is responsible for the sense of hearing. The auditory system includes the ear, which is its sensory organ, and the auditory part of the sensory system. The ears are stimulated by vibrations, and these vibrations are then converted into electrical signals in the ear into the encoded nervous impulse, which is then processed by the central auditory pathways of the brain. Alberti 2018.
In addition, hearing enables us to identify and recognize objects around us through sound. Our sense of hearing allows us to gather, process, and interpret these sounds around us continuously with no conscious effort.
So let us proceed in discussing these sounds. These sounds that we hear around us are derived from objects that are produced by a series of vibration that travels through many types of medium. It can come through air, liquids, and solid. There are many kinds of types of sound, and how these sounds are perceived varies from person to person. It also depends upon the circumstance they are in.
Some perceive sounds as noise. Noise is considered as an unwanted sound. According to Dickinson, noise produces a subjective impression of an unpleasant feeling and discomfort towards the listener. However, the degree of unpleasantness and discomfort that comes from hearing these noises depends on the sound pressure level, distribution of frequency of the complex sound field, and the duration of exposure to the noise.
The human auditory system corresponds to a band of frequencies with a specific range and intensity that is perceived by the ear. The ear is also functioned to differentiate the characteristic of sounds such as pitch and loudness, which is also refers to the frequency of sound waves and intensity.
The measurement or unit of frequency is called hertz. The hearing capacity of humans is between 20 Hz, which is considered as the lowest pitch, to 20 kHz, which is considered as the highest pitch. A sound that has below 20 Hz are identified as infrasounds, while sounds that are above 20 kHz are considered ultrasonic sounds.
So, what is ultrasonic sounds? Ultrasonic sounds, also known as ultrasound, are defined as frequencies above the range audible to the human ear. Jones et al. 2018. If you're wondering how ultrasonic sounds like, I'm sure you've heard these types of sound at some point in your everyday life.
Ultrasonic sounds can be present everywhere. It can be heard in a person's day-to-day living. It can also be heard in a working environment, some of which are produced by a variety of devices such as washers and machines. Some examples of ultrasonic sounds are welding and erosion machines, manual soldering irons and tanks for tin plating, which are necessary for technological processes. Ultrasonic sounds are also used as animal repellent, namely rats or squirrels.
We already know that there is a consequential effect of ultrasonic sounds on hearing, since it is still a sound after all.
Which then leads us to the purpose of this study, which is to determine what are the physiological effects of ultrasonic sound on human hearing, as well as how ultrasonic sounds affect the human auditory system.
Let us proceed to the methodology.
Since we are still in the midst of the pandemic, the participants of the study are individuals that are quarantined with the researchers, which includes family members and close neighbors with an age range of 19 to 24 years old. There were a total of 6 participants who participated in this study.
To collect the data needed for the study, the researchers asked for the participants' consent by handing out the informed consent form for safety and awareness of the participants. After the approval of the participants to join the study, they were then instructed by the researchers to listen to an audio provided by the researchers. The experimental group were asked to listen to a 1-minute ultrasonic sound which has a high frequency that was retrieved from YouTube, and the controlled group was asked to listen to the same audio for 3 minutes. Both groups were asked to listen to the audio using earphones or headphones with a constant volume of 50%. 30 seconds after listening to the audio that was given by the researchers, the participants were then asked to answer a 6-item questionnaire.
After obtaining the data from the participants, these are their individual results based on the survey questionnaire. Let us proceed with the average score for each item. For question 1, the results showed that an average of 66.7% of the participants found the sound unpleasant, while an average of 33.3% did not find the sound unpleasant. If we look at their individual results again, 2 participants coming from the experimental group were the ones who did not find the sound unpleasant.
Next is for question 2. The results show that an average of 83.3% of the participants who were still hearing the sound even after the exposure, while an average of 16.7% of the participants who said that they no longer hear the sound after they were exposed to it. The 16.7% belonged to a participant from the experimental group.
This is the average score for question number 3 and question number 4. As you may have seen, they have similar results. An average of 33.3% of the participants experienced dizziness while and after they were exposed to the sound, and an average of 66.7% did not experience dizziness while and after their exposure. And if we look at their individual results again, all of the participants from the experimental group did not experience dizziness while and after they were exposed to the sound.
This is the average score for question number 5 and question number 6. The results showed that 66.7% of the participants experienced ear discomfort or pain while being exposed to the audio, and 33.3% of the participants said that they did not experience any ear discomfort or pain while listening to the sound. Based on their results, 1 participant from the control group and also 1 participant from the experimental group were the ones who did not experience ear discomfort, while for the result of question number 6 showed that none of the participants experienced any ear discomfort or pain after they were exposed to the sound.
Let us then proceed with the discussion of results. According to the findings, there is a significant effect of ultrasonic sound towards human hearing despite the time duration exposed to the sound. 4 out of 6 participants found the high-frequency audio unpleasant. Majority who said it came from the controlled group, who was exposed to the sound longer compared to the other group. This concludes that longer exposure to high-frequency sound can lead to perceiving the sound as a noise, since it brings an uncomfortable feeling. This would then also mean that shorter exposure to high-frequency sounds does not bring any unpleasant feeling and could not be considered enough to be called as a noise.
Moreover, the ultrasonic sound that majority of the participants consider as a noise caused an experience of short-term auditory hallucinations. Auditory hallucination is defined by Thakur and Gupta 2020 as a form of hallucination involving the perception of a sound without the auditory stimuli. Auditory hallucinations are also considered as a form of slight hearing impairment. This is when they still hear the sound even though it was no longer played.
As cited by Smagoska et al., according to a research that was conducted of dentists using dental scalers, which has a frequency of 25 to 42 kHz, exhibit that ultrasonic sound did not cause hearing loss. However, it has resulted to a slight hearing impairment at a frequency of 3 kHz. A longer and more constant exposure could cause harmful effects towards an individual.
Furthermore, exposure to ultrasonic sounds based on the results also caused some of the participants to experience dizziness while and after being exposed to the sound. This effect occurs even just in seconds when the sound is played, and it can also render the participants to feeling dizzy for a short period of time, even when they're no longer exposed to the sound or the audio was no longer played.
The rationale for this is explained in a study conducted by the University of Utah. A study was conducted to observe the neurons and the inner ear fluid motion in a toadfish, an animal who have a similar inner ear balance and organs with humans. The results showed that dizziness is experienced when a sound generates pathological fluid mechanical waves in the semicircular canals of the ear. The inner ear balance and hearing organs are actually enclosed inside a solid bone.
In addition, as cited in their study, a research by Pietro Tullio in 1929, it was discovered that there is a hole in the solid bone enclosure that causes the inner ear semicircular canals to be very sensitive to high-frequency sounds. This is what causes the eyes to move in a rotating manner by an automatic reflex, which normally stabilizes the image that is being perceived in the eye during movements over the head. However, if the ear perceives a wrong signal which is caused by high-frequency sounds, it can also cause irregular movements in the eye that causes an individual to feel dizzy.
Next, also based on the results, most of the participants experience ear discomfort or pain while listening to the sound, while none of the participants experience any ear discomfort or pain after being exposed to the sound.
People sometimes encounter high-frequency sounds or loud noises at some point in their day-to-day lives. However, longer exposure and higher volume could cause hearing impairments because high-frequency sounds and loud sounds damage the nerves, membranes, and hair cells within the ear.
As the participants find these sounds uncomfortable to listen to, normally they would have to switch to a different environment or lower the volume to protect their ears from exposure to the unpleasant sound. According to studies, results have shown that the human brain responds differently to high-frequency sounds. And imaging studies have also confirmed that the amygdala becomes active when an individual is exposed to these type of sounds, since the amygdala is the part of the brain that is responsible for emotional reactions, which is why high-frequency sounds causes an individual to experience discomfort.
To conclude this, we must really be aware of up to what frequency level our ears can handle. We are not saying that we should avoid any high-frequency sounds, but we must not expose ourselves to these types of sound for a long period of time, for it can cause serious damage to our ears that can cause a short-term or long-term hearing impairment.
For the limitations and recommendations, this study is limited to the effects of the exposure of ultrasonic sound on hearing only. This study does not discuss further on the effects of ultrasonic sound on body movements.
For future researchers, we recommend conducting this research on a larger population to secure reliability and validity of the results.
We would also recommend the future researchers to conduct a research to determine if there is a significant difference on the effects of exposure to ultrasonic sounds between men and women.
And lastly, we also recommend that materials used for the experiment should also include a constant frequency level to really determine at what frequency level the effects occur.
That would be all. Thank you for listening.